In the dim and damp cell, Emily lay on the ground, dressed in prison clothes. Her head throbbed with pain, and the stench of decay assaulted her senses. She forced herself to endure the discomfort.
Several foul-smelling, lecherous men pressed down on her, her thoughts beginning to clear.
Today, I want to see what it's like to be with the daughter of the revered Prime Minister.
A corpulent man roughly tugged at her clothes, his hands roaming all over her. He made nauseating sounds as he did so.
Don't worry, darling. We will make sure you're well taken care of.
The others, seemingly encouraged, began to act frantically. Emily trembled with fear and struggled violently.
Let go of me! Let go! Help! Someone, help!
Beauty, no one will come to save you here. Be good and let us take care of you.
She felt his foul saliva drip onto her face. With all her strength, she kneed upwards.
You wretch, you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. I'll make you regret it.
The man cried out in pain and slapped her hard. They were all condemned prisoners, living day by day without any scruples. The man, enraged by her defiance, became even more vicious. Emily's remaining clothes were torn apart. Tears slid down her cheeks.
Father, Mother, your daughter has failed you.
She resolved to end it all, pressing her tongue against her gums.
How dare you, you scoundrels? Do you want to die, touching someone under the Crown Prince's protection?
A sharp, piercing voice rang out as the cell door was flung open. Emily vaguely saw a group of people rush in. The man's pupils suddenly dilated, and he collapsed. She felt warmth on her neck, the metallic scent of blood filling her nostrils. The men were killed in an instant. Blood splattered everywhere, and Emily frantically reached for her clothes. Her body continued to tremble uncontrollably.
Emily, receive the decree.
The eunuch smiled obsequiously. Emily mechanically knelt down, lost in thought. I was once the beloved daughter of the Prime Minister, adored by thousands. My father, John, was the most trusted advisor of the Emperor, Edward. My parents, John and Mary, were always in harmony, deeply in love, and I was their only daughter. From a young age, I had everything I wanted, except for one thing: marriage.
Father, why must I marry the Crown Prince?
Emily, the Emperor insists. He wants to control me through you.
But Father, can't we refuse?
I've tried everything, my dear. But in the end, I am powerless.
I once saw him weep alone for me. He knelt before our ancestors, beating his chest.
Ancestors, I am ashamed before you. I cannot even decide my daughter's marriage, condemning her happiness to the confines of the palace. I am truly powerless. How can Emily not blame me?
He also resolutely told me.
If it comes to it, I will resign as Prime Minister. We can live a carefree life in the countryside, just the three of us.
Father, it's all right. It's just marrying the Crown Prince. Your daughter will be a Crown Princess, after all. How prestigious that sounds.
John knew I was comforting him and tried to smile, but it was a bitter, forced smile. Emily had finally convinced John to let her marry Charles. On her wedding day, the procession stretched for miles with golden carriages and jade palanquins.
This is the happiest day of my life.
But on her wedding night, her joy turned to sorrow. Her family was destroyed by Henry's treachery.
Henry! How could you do this?
Henry had fabricated evidence, leading to her father's execution ordered by Edward.
Father, I can't believe you're gone.
The public execution was a spectacle. Emily was held down by guards, forced to watch her father's demise.
Let me go! Father, no!
Her father tried to convey a silent message to her with a smile.
I will live well, Father. I will take care of Mary.
She broke free and ran towards him, but it was too late. The execution was carried out.
No. This can't be happening.
Exhausted, she fainted. Edward spared her life, fearing public outrage.
Emily, your entire family is gone. Even your mother.
Mother? No.
She was mistreated by the guards and died in agony.
I will make them pay for this. John, Mary, I swear it.
You, the daughter of a criminal, being able to become a concubine to His Highness is a great blessing. Why don't you thank the decree?
So, my father died, and Henry took his place. Even the position of crown princess was given to Henry's daughter, Sophia.
Rumors had long circulated that Sophia had admired the crown prince for a long time. Unfortunately, Henry had never been favored by Edward, and naturally, his daughter was of little use. Now that Sophia had become the crown princess, she asked the crown prince for a reward, making me his concubine. Her intentions were obvious. And Henry, it turned out, was paving the way for his daughter. What a well-played scheme.
I narrowed my eyes and obediently accepted the decree, following George into the crown prince's residence.
On the first night, Sophia sent a maid to summon me for a greeting.
Miss Emily, Lady Sophia has requested your presence.
I followed the maid to Sophia's quarters.
Don't you know that a concubine must kneel to greet the main wife?
My body ached faintly, but I stood straight, saying nothing.
Emily, do you still think you're the esteemed Miss Emily? The Emily family is gone. You're nothing but a stray now, so stop putting on airs.
The Emily family was loyal and brave. How dare you speak such nonsense?
Emily, wake up. Even now, you're talking about loyalty and patriotism. No matter how loyal your family was, they couldn't escape their fate. And now, you still have to kneel and greet me.
When I refused to kneel, 2 of Sophia's maids came to drag me down. I resisted with all my strength, but one of the maids slapped me hard. Seeing that they couldn't make me kneel, they brought a thick wooden stick and struck my knees. I fell to my knees, unable to bear the pain, tears streaming down my face.
So, you have your day too. She looked at me viciously. You haven't even served tea yet.
Martha brought the tea, and I mechanically went through the motions.
You wretch, are you trying to scald me?
Sophia stood up from her chair and kicked me in the chest. As if that wasn't enough, she began pulling my hair. I knew the tea was cold, but I could only endure her punches and kicks in silence. When she finally tired of beating me, she said,
Drag this wretch out to kneel in the snow.
It was the middle of winter, and the wind was bone-chilling. My lips trembled, and I was on the verge of collapse. My body no longer felt like my own. So cold, so very cold. Suddenly, I saw the faces of John and Mary. I shook my head to clear it. I hadn't avenged them yet, I couldn't give up now. Driven by sheer willpower, I survived.
I heard that His Majesty hung the bodies of Alexander and his wife on the city wall for public display, not allowing anyone to collect them.
That's too tragic. Alexander was a good minister. How did he end up committing treason? It's really miserable now.
Yes, only Emily is left from the whole family, and she's in such a state. It's too pitiful.
The conversations outside reached my ears. Dragging my heavy body, I wanted to collect my parents' bodies, but Jack stopped me at the door.
Sophia ordered that you are not allowed to leave the mansion.
I tried everything but couldn't see my parents one last time. At night, I stuffed a piece of peach blossom pastry into my mouth and took the hairpin from my bun. The hairpin fell from my arm, sweat beads forming all over. I endured the pain and carved the word "goo" on my arm. The fragrant taste of peach blossom spread in my mouth, dispelling the pain. I looked at the word on my arm and smiled. Only by looking at it constantly could I remind myself that I must not forget the vengeance for my family's extermination. I swore that one day, I would cut their flesh piece by piece and spill their blood on my parents' tombstone. Narrator, tone, serious. After days of resistance, I realized that only compliance would give me a sliver of hope.
Emily, tone, sad. I knelt before Sophia, my eyes lowered, massaging her legs.
Sophia, tone, unfriendly. If you had been this sensible before, you wouldn't have suffered so much.
Emily, tone, hopefully you are right, madam. I was foolish before. I hope you won't hold it against me.
Narrator, tone, serious. Sophia was pleased with my words. She held her teacup and said arrogantly,
Sophia, tone, unfriendly. It's good that you understand.
Emily, tone, shy. Madam, your generosity is my blessing. But tomorrow is the 7th day since my parents passed. It's a pity that I, as their daughter, cannot see them off.
Narrator, tone, serious. Sophia pondered for a moment.
Sophia, tone, serious. Then you may leave the residence tomorrow, but you must be discreet. Prince Charles does not like you having any ties with the Emily family. After tomorrow, you are no longer their daughter.
Emily, tone, serious. Yes.
Narrator, tone, serious. My compliance gave Sophia a sense of accomplishment. She seemed to think of something and touched her face with a hint of pride.
Sophia, tone, cheerful. Prince Charles is very fond of me these days, and he promised to send Olivia to the brothel to amuse me.
Narrator, tone, serious. Olivia, the daughter of General Philip, was born into a military family and naturally despised pretentiousness. She and Sophia had always been arch enemies. I was momentarily stunned, feeling a twinge of emotion.
Emily, tone, serious. Prince Charles loves you the most, madam.
Narrator, tone, serious. Coming to my senses, I realized that Sophia's current status was only because I no longer posed a threat to her. A tiger's daughter could never be a soft kitten. I concealed the darkness in my eyes. At night, I disguised myself as a servant and sneaked out of the mansion. Shaking off the attendants, I headed towards General Philip's residence.
Miss, the general has just returned from the border, and the troops are not yet settled. It is inconvenient to receive guests.
I knew why General Philip refused to see me. When my father was alive, he was on good terms with many, including General Philip. Now that he is gone, the court is corrupt, and Emperor Edward is incompetent. No one can guarantee their safety, so it's best to wait and see. I was already grateful that the maid of the general's residence showed me some respect. I did not expect General Philip to help me without hesitation. But I had to take a chance. After waiting outside the general's residence for 2 hours, a servant finally informed me that I could enter. However, it was not General Philip the first saw, but his son, James. He wore a purple robe, his face chiseled, exuding a cold aura.
Miss Emily, what brings you here today?
Mr. James, you must be aware of the situation with the Emily family. My purpose needs no explanation.
James leisurely sipped his tea, glancing at me sideways.
And what benefits does the Emily family offer to the Philip family?
Everything Emily has, I offer.
James chuckled.
Miss Emily, you can barely protect yourself now.
The Emily family went from being prominent to this state. The Johnson family, Williams family, and Brown family could face the same fate. I am just a woman with little influence, but will the Philip family willingly be at the mercy of others? Now that I am in the Crown Prince's residence, I will find an opportunity.
James's eyes flickered.
All right.
I knew he had agreed. Emily visited several residences, all of which had good relations with John. With the support of the Chin family, they had no more reservations.
Emily, the officials are starting to submit petitions. The rumors are spreading fast.
Good. The Emperor's cruelty and the killing of loyal subjects will not go unnoticed.
The rumors grew more intense, claiming that the emperor, influenced by slander, had turned against his loyal ministers overnight. Although Emperor Edward was greatly enraged, he had no choice but to push Emily forward to prove that he still had a shred of compassion.
Spare the life of the only daughter of the Gu family.
Sparing Emily's life was far from enough. Led by the Qin family, the officials demanded that the emperor elevate Emily to the position of crown princess, demoting Sophia, a daughter of a concubine, to a secondary consort.
The officials are with us, Emily. This is just the beginning.
What difference does it make between a crown princess, a secondary consort, and a concubine? I smiled. This was just the beginning.
Emily, you despicable woman! What underhanded methods did you use?
Sophia screamed hoarsely, rushing towards me. Blocked by Jack, her face twisted with rage.
A daughter born of a lowly woman is indeed lowly. No wonder your mother, that woman of ill repute, gave birth to you.
You are just the daughter of a maid, and you dare to speak of my mother.
I stepped forward and kicked her in the face with all my strength.
Emily, just wait. Prince Charles won't let you get away with this.
Do you really think he loves you that much? Everyone knows Prince Charles has been infatuated with beauty since he was young. I wonder how he would feel if your face were ruined.
Holding a sharp pair of scissors, I walked towards Sophia.
Emily, what are you doing? I warn you, stay away from me.
Moments later, she became frightened, trembling as she pleaded.
No, please, spare me.
If I spared you, who would spare my mother?
As the sound of flesh tearing filled the air, Sophia screamed in agony, writhing on the ground. I wouldn't let her suffer forever. I made her kneel before my parents' memorial tablets every day to repent. See, you bow every day to the woman you despise. I never expected that even after such daily torment, Sophia would still frequently mention Prince Charles. How could she know that the prince she longed for now had eyes only for me? Charles was known for his debauchery and cruelty, but he had a particular fondness for beauty. Previously, due to Sophia's interference, I had never seen him. Now that I had become the crown princess, he was instantly captivated by me.
My dear Emily, you are a vision!
Thank you, Your Highness.
With my beauty and a few subtle manipulations, he became completely infatuated with me, obeying my every word.
You should emulate the rulers of the past, strong and decisive.
He did as I hoped, becoming more despotic and incompetent by the day, his reputation among the people worsening.
They will remember me as a powerful king.
While I praised him effusively, I diligently studied the classics and the principles of a gentleman. Sophia watched as I harmonized with Charles, filled with jealousy, and sent a note through her maid. It turned out that it was Charles who ordered me to be locked in the mansion that day, preventing me from seeing John and Mary. Such a lowly trick to sow discord, I naturally fell for it. I sent someone to call for Charles. He was hunting at the time, but upon receiving the message, he immediately put down his crossbow and came to see me.
My beauty, why the sad face? Who has upset you? Tell me, and I will deal with them.
It's all your fault, Your Highness.
Is there something I did wrong? Tell me, and I will change it immediately.
It was you who didn't let me leave the mansion that day. I didn't get to see them one last time.
Hearing this, Charles broke into a sweat, stammering and unable to speak. I glanced at him secretly and said understandingly,
I know you were just worried about me that day. You must have been influenced by that treacherous Henry.
Yes, it was him. He incited me.
Your Highness, you must stand up for me.
Of course.
Charles summoned Henry. When Henry saw me, he looked as if he had seen a ghost.
You seductive woman. What have you bewitched His Highness with this time?
Your Highness, I did nothing.
Charles was furious upon hearing this and threw a teacup at Henry.
How dare you slander my princess consort like this?
Blood oozed from Henry's forehead, but he did not dare to wipe it away. He knelt very low, his head hitting the ground with a loud thud.
Your Highness, please see clearly. I am loyal to you and would never speak recklessly.
I cried even harder. Charles patted my back in a panic.
Emily, you can deal with him as you see fit.
He completely ignored Henry's words. My body trembled, and with tearful eyes, I looked at Charles and softly said,
I suddenly remembered that I haven't made soup for your highness in a long time.
Charles laughed joyfully and playfully tapped my nose with his finger.
I knew you were kind-hearted. Then let's use the boiling punishment to make my beloved happy.
I smiled as I watched Henry being dragged away. As he passed by me, Henry's murky eyes stared at me.
Emily, you are truly a heartless woman.
Henry, there's no need to praise me like that. If ending you makes me heartless, then with the thousands you've harmed, even the most ruthless creatures would shun you in death.
Henry, enraged, tried to rush at me, but the guards held him down and kicked him in the knees, making him kneel before me. I covered my mouth and laughed.
Henry, there's no need for such a grand gesture.
You.
Look how angry Henry is. I wonder if your most cherished daughter, Sophia, who is now disfigured, still remembers her doting father.
Henry suddenly looked up and then began to kowtow frantically, his head hitting the ground with loud thuds.
Please spare my daughter. She knows nothing.
None of you will be spared.
Henry slumped to the ground, blood flowing from his forehead, looking pitiful. He closed his eyes and said,
Parents love their children deeply. Everything is my fault. And me, but spare her life. Please understand a parent's heart.
I laughed, completely unable to understand. I've never seen other parents love their children by harming entire families. Some people are rotten to the core. I watched as Henry was dragged away. Smoke filled the air, and the furnace burned brightly. I was ready to watch a good show.
James is here.
I raised an eyebrow. Why was he here? Charles, who had been lounging, suddenly sat up straight and cleared his throat.
What brings you to the prince's residence, James?
I silently fed grapes to Charles and met James's indifferent gaze. For some reason, my palms felt hot. I withdrew my hand.
It seems I came at the right time. The prince's residence is quite lively today.
James said, ignoring Charles's question. Charles didn't mind.
I was just about to punish Henry with boiling. You're just in time to join the fun.
James squinted his eyes and looked at me again. His gaze seemed to pierce through me. Feeling exposed, I stared back at him. Rather than letting him see through me, I decided to see through him first. Finally, he looked away. I let out a heavy sigh. But just as I relaxed, I heard James say,
My father and Alexander still have some words to exchange. Before I came, my father specifically asked me to convey his regards to the princess consort. I hope your highness will allow it.
Charles looked at me.
My beloved, you may go.
In the backyard, James stood with his hands behind his back, his face expressionless.
I didn't expect Miss Emily to be so ruthless.
Thank you for the compliment.
Women are inherently delicate. Their hands should not be stained, especially not through such sinister means.
Does General James think I'm malicious? If so, you can choose not to cooperate with me.
James's face showed a hint of anger, his eyes dark and intense.
Your tone has hardened. Now that you've latched onto Prince Charles, you no longer recognize others. I overestimated you.
With that, he turned and left. Emily felt a pang in her chest. She knew she was a delicate woman, but in this world, what choice did she have? With no one to rely on, she had no other path to quickly avenge her parents except by currying favor and clinging to power.
I knew James didn't want me to harm Henry. But I had no way out. I had to avenge my parents.
Returning to Prince Charles's side, Henry had been brought to the cauldron, which was adorned with patterns and measured a full 8 feet and 8 inches. James stood beside me, his expression back to normal.
Your Highness, the cauldron is already boiling.
Very well, let's begin.
He ordered the attendants to throw Henry into the cauldron. Just as I was about to see my revenge fulfilled, I heard a voice say,
"Wait."
James leisurely walked in front of me. I grabbed his sleeve, glaring at him in anger, but he didn't even glance at me. The attendants paused, awaiting further instructions.
Does General James have any concerns?
My eyes reddened, and my nails dug painfully into my palms.
Such a ruthless act should be carried out by me.
I understood the underlying meaning of his words, and a strange feeling rose within me.
Very well, very well.
James, whether intentionally or not, blocked my view. I had my maid assist me as I walked forward. Watching Henry being pushed into the cauldron, I felt an immense satisfaction. As the lid closed, I saw the regret in his eyes. But was it of any use? It was too late. If given a chance for regret, who would honor the memory of my parents? The roaring fire made the water in the cauldron sizzle until there was no sound or sign of life left, no more ripples. I laughed, an unrestrained laugh. But as I laughed, I began to cry. Despite having avenged my parents, I couldn't find any joy in my heart. I felt utterly oppressed.
Why are you crying, my love? Are you still not satisfied? I can have her daughter taken care of as well.
No, I am very happy. Sophia loves you dearly and thinks of you every day. Please visit her more often when you have the time.
I felt so exhausted, both physically and mentally. Dragging my body, I walked towards my chamber. James's meaningful gaze was impossible to ignore. Narrator, tone, sad Emily had a dream where Mary asked her,
Emily, what kind of husband do you want in the future?
Narrator, tone, sad before Emily could answer, John, with a proud expression, said,
My precious daughter deserves the best man in the world, one who excels in both literature and martial arts.
As long as our daughter likes him, why do you have so many requirements?
Narrator, tone, sad the two of them bantered, planning Emily's future.
I don't want to get married.
Narrator, tone, sad John and Mary were stunned.
I want to stay with you forever.
Our Emily has grown up.
Narrator, tone, sad John patted Emily's head with satisfaction. When Emily woke up, tears streamed down her face.
I never thought that the forever I spoke of would be so short, ending before it even began.
Since Henry was subjected to boiling punishment, Sophia had been in a semi-delirious state, often hugging the locust tree in front of the door, calling out Prince Charles.
Sirius, summon the imperial physician to see her.
It took a great deal of effort to cure her. With my instructions, even though Sophia's face was ruined, Charles would still visit her frequently.
Excited, finally, through my efforts, Sophia became pregnant.
I was overjoyed. The firstborn of the current crown prince, how exciting! Sophia knew my methods and lived cautiously.
Sirius sent people to deliver food to her, but she never dared to eat it.
She lived in constant anxiety for 10 months. Finally, on the day of childbirth, I dismissed everyone in the mansion. With no one to assist her, Sophia gave birth to a stillborn.
Sirius, have the midwife replace the stillborn with a grotesque creature.
Within a day, the news spread across the land, and people outside called her a witch, a depraved woman. I gave her hope only to crush her completely. In utter despair, Sophia took her own life.
Whispering, if it weren't for her unwarranted desires, my parents wouldn't have died.
I blamed her father for his greed and her for giving him a reason. To hell with the saying that parents' love for their children knows no bounds. My parents were dead, and someone had to pay the price. I felt like I had gone completely mad. I thought my path of revenge was nearly complete, but before Sophia passed away, she told me that the mastermind behind the extermination of the Emily family was not Henry, but the Johnson family. Even though I couldn't believe it, I investigated. The day before the Emily family was annihilated, General Philip indeed entered the palace once. Before that, Emperor Edward had also summoned both Henry and General Philip into the palace alone, and even the attendants didn't know what they discussed. Suddenly thinking of James's cold face, I was momentarily flustered. Deep down, I didn't want the Johnson family to be involved in this matter. But repeated investigations yielded the same result. I recalled that day at the Johnson residence, when General Philip refused to see me and instead sent his son, eventually negotiating a mutually beneficial outcome. I cooperated from within, and the Johnson family provided slight assistance, reaping the benefits while others fought. I had thought the Johnson family was considering their relationship with John, but it turned out they were also acting in their own interest. My heart grew restless. In the Jixian residence, James sat across from me, calm and composed. He seemed to be in a good mood, no longer exuding the tense atmosphere from last time. I, however, was boiling with anger.
Do you know why I am here this time, Mr. James?
Feel free to speak.
The annihilation of the Emily family in one night was not solely the work of Henry. What do General Philip and young General James think about this? Staring at James, not missing a single expression.
Are you suspecting us?
I heard that before the Emily family was destroyed, your father was summoned to the palace. What important matter did he discuss with His Majesty late at night?
The Emperor's intentions are unpredictable. My father wouldn't tell me. Judging based on this alone, Miss Emily, you are being hasty.
Who knows what you would do for the sake of profit?
Upon hearing this, James abruptly stood up and walked towards me, looking down at me from above. I met his gaze without flinching. James's eyes darkened, and after a moment, he laughed in anger.
Do you think everyone is as treacherous as Henry? Do you think you can bring significant benefits to the Johnson family? Or do you think my father would believe you based on a few words and risk the crime of treason to cooperate with you? My sincerity in your heart, Emily, is indeed worthless.
I didn't miss the flash of pain and sorrow in his eyes.
Since that's the case, our cooperation ends here.
Watching James's resolute back, I fell into deep thought. My intentions naturally represented those of Charles. Soon, the news of Charles breaking ties with the Johnson family spread throughout the capital. Charles's reputation among the people was deteriorating. Although state affairs were fully entrusted to Charles, ultimate power still rested with Edward.
Given the current situation, His Majesty might consider relieving you of your duties.
Charles, indeed foolish, took my words to heart and went to Edward's chambers.
Though father might consider deposing you, he is still your biological father. Why don't we abandon the position of crown prince and retire to the countryside? Even if you are despised and impoverished, I am willing to stay by your side.
Don't worry, my love, I won't let you suffer.
He tricked Edward into handing over the imperial seal. Edward finally handed over the seal with relief. A sharp sword pierced Edward's chest, with blood gushing out.
This is finally happening.
I stood beside, watching this tragic scene, laughing unrestrainedly. The dying Edward struggled to lift his hand, pointing at me, muttering something, but he could no longer speak. Edward passed away. Then, I incited Charles to eliminate all his siblings, leaving him as the sole ruler of the dynasty. Narrator, tone, serious. Before Charles ascended the throne, everyone thought the Johnson family was doomed, having offended the vindictive prince. Even Charles himself thought so. But overnight, the Johnson family was promoted. Naturally, it was at my behest. It was only after meeting James that I realized my speculation had missed a crucial point.
Emily, tone, thoughtful. On the day the Emily family was exterminated, General Philip had just returned from the border. The Johnson family maid said that at that time, General Philip's troops had not yet settled, so they had no spare capacity to participate in the Emily family case.
James, tone, serious. Moreover, there were many officers and soldiers involved in the investigation and execution of the Emily family, and to intimidate the public, Edward had even sent additional troops. If the Johnson family had been involved, General Philip would have deployed his soldiers.
Emily, tone, serious. The Johnson family had won battles in the early years, and Edward had granted them the privilege of having their own insignia. Therefore, their clothing and weapons were all marked with the character Cheen. I had people investigate, and none of the officers and soldiers involved in the case had this mark.
James, tone, serious. Besides, I had to admit, what you said that day did stir something within me. The former emperor was foolish and tyrannical, but inherently suspicious. Since you were pushed by the Johnson family and other ministers to become the crown princess, he must have been suspicious.
Emily, tone, serious. Later, I used Charles to eliminate Henry. Although he was bedridden with illness, he must have heard the rumors and become even more suspicious. I played along, breaking ties with the Johnson family to dispel Edward's doubts, finally making him feel secure enough to hand the imperial seal to Charles. Of course, my promotion of the Johnson family was not solely for these reasons.
Miss Emily, what a clever move.
James sneered, his hawk-like eyes fixed on me. I waved my long sleeve, brushing it across his face, and gently sat on his lap.
I must thank you, Mr. James, for your generous assistance. However, there is one more thing I need to trouble you with.
What do you want now?
James gritted his teeth, gripping my arm.
I wonder if Mr. James is interested in ruling the world.
The Cheen family is powerful, I must persuade them to help me. James's dangerous eyes deepened as he stared at me, then suddenly he laughed.
So that's it!
I thought he had agreed. After all, it was a sure-win situation. But then he said,
But what if I'm only interested in you?
I was stunned, unable to react, as a fierce and invasive kiss descended upon me. James's strong, well-defined hands gripped my waist, holding me tightly in his arms. He bit my lip without restraint, the sweet metallic taste spreading in my mouth. I responded to him clumsily, but passionately. Ending Charles was an effortless task. Before his end, he finally realized my intention and pleaded with me in fear.
Please, don't do this!
A gentle blade, each cut final. Blame it on your foolishness, blinded by desire. Blame your royal family for being decadent and incompetent, cruel and inhumane. Blame yourself for employing treacherous ministers and harming the loyal and righteous. This dynasty was long overdue for its downfall.
Over the years, I had secretly amassed considerable power, but the path to the throne was fraught with obstacles. With the help of the Cheen family, I successfully ascended to the throne. The first thing I did after my coronation was to announce to the world the truth about the extermination of the Gu family and order the punishment of all those involved. Blood flowed in front of my parents' graves. Standing before them, I didn't find the strong scent of blood repulsive. Instead, it smelled better than any flower I had ever encountered. I collapsed in front of the graves, clutching my favorite peach blossom pastries, numbly stuffing them into my mouth as tears fell uncontrollably.
Father, Mother, I have finally avenged you. The souls of the Gu family can finally rest in peace.
I remembered that day vividly. The sky was clear, and the weather was beautiful. I was mischievous and refused to study, and no one in the Prime Minister's residence could handle me. Only my mother knew how to coax me. She would hold me and gently say,
Emily, let's study hard, and I'll make you the best peach blossom pastries in the world.
Okay.
Whenever I got into trouble, she never scolded me, just patted my head and silently brought out the pastries to comfort me. I always listened to her, thinking it was because the pastries were sweet and delicious, the best in the world. Now I realize it wasn't the pastries that were special, It was because they were made by the best mother in the world. Lost in my thoughts, I was already in tears. James silently held me, and the tension that had been building for so long finally broke. I cried out,
James, I no longer have my father and mother. No one loves me anymore. No one will make me peach blossom pastries anymore. No one will call me Emily anymore. James, I miss them so much. Really, really miss them.
Emily, don't be sad. From now on, I'll take care of you.
The end.